Welcome to the FitBiz Accelerator, your ultimate guide to launching, growing, and scaling a thriving online fitness business. I'm your host, Tobias Young, and whether you're just starting out or looking to take your business to the next level, this podcast is packed with actionable tips, real-world strategies, and the insights you need to crush your business goals and build the business of your dreams. Now that you're here, let's dive in. Right. Welcome back to the FitBiz Accelerator. This is the podcast where we help fitness coaches and entrepreneurs launch, grow, and scale their business with proven strategies and world-class insights. And today's episode is going to be different in the best way possible because we're going to be diving deep into leadership, into communication, and something that doesn't get talked about much. That's mental fitness. And my guest today knows this world inside and out. Michael Anderson is a professor, a professional coach, and a consultant with more than 3 decades of experience teaching leadership and communication across the globe. And he's also a veteran of the Army National Guard, a professional musician who still plays in a local band, a fitness enthusiast, and someone who is passionate about helping people stop sabotaging their own success and start leading from who they were designed to be in the first place. So Michael, welcome to the show, man. Super excited to dive in with you today.
Yes, thank you so much, Tobias. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And Michael, like you've lived such a multifaceted life, professor, coach, veteran, musician, and obviously fitness enthusiast yourself. Can you take us back a bit and just share what kind of shaped your passion for leadership and for communication?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the only thing I can think of, honestly, is that that's kind of what I'm built for. And we may touch on this later. When I look at the things that I gravitate towards, if you're familiar with the Clifton Strengths Assessment, basically my top talents are all about communication and leadership. And in fact, when I was thinking about getting my master's degree, I did one of those silly free online, find out what your master's degree should be in. The results came back, I should get a master's degree in communication and leadership. And I kind of scoffed. Like, well, that's exactly right. If only there was such a program. And the very next day, I got a phone call from a young lady at Gonzaga University where they had a master's degree in communication and leadership. And it was like a dream come true.
That's cool. And so it all kind of like was meant, maybe meant to be. And
yeah, you could say that. Yeah, in my youth, in high school and in college, I frequently found myself in public speaking settings, giving presentations, emceeing events, and then, of course, with a military background, very interested in leadership, in influence, and how that works. How do you help people be better? And how do you help teams be better, which I really think is the essence of leadership.
Yeah. And thanks for your service, by the way. Just wanted to get that out there. And what role has fitness actually played in your own journey as more of like a leader and a coach?
Okay. That's a weird story. I honestly, until I got into the Army, I was not that interested in physical fitness. But boy, 6 years of that will definitely create some habits, which I know is what, fitness coaches want to do, create habits. And so I've been doing push-ups since I was 18 years old, basically. At one point, I was not so interested. I was interested in staying in shape, but I hadn't really caught the fitness bug. I was touring in bands at the time, and I lived in Indianapolis, where they host the Indianapolis Mini Marathon, which at the time was the largest half marathon in the world. And I had people doing it. I thought, well, that sounds kind of interesting, but I was fond of saying, why in the world would anybody want to run more than 2 miles, which was the Army physical fitness test, a 2-mile run, let alone a half marathon or a full marathon. And somebody encouraged me to do it. And I just started running and didn't stop until, I had a motorcycle accident last year and that stopped that. But I went on to run more half marathons than I can count, and even qualified for and completed the Boston Marathon. So that's sort of my fitness pinnacle. So
yeah. That's fantastic, man. And looking back to how have your experiences, both from the military and also from music, how has that shaped your leadership abilities too? Because leadership's been a big part of your world.
Oh yeah, that's a great question. For one thing, music is about getting a group of people to work together in a very profound and specific way. I used to play in symphonies, and every note is marked out. In fact, if you're familiar with the 1812 overture that has the cannons in it, Tchaikovsky actually wrote the cannon part. Fire the cannon now, now, now. is remarkable. And so there's this sense of how do you unite all of these people around a common goal? It's the same thing in the Army. You have a common goal that you have to execute on and bring into reality. So whether it's jazz or rock or symphonic music, whether you're in the military or at a company, you have to be able to align people, motivate them to perform with passion and excellence.
Yeah, that makes sense, man. And you said in the past that it boils down to three things, right? Knowing what to do, knowing if you can or can't do it, and then also having the mental and the emotional fortitude to follow through. Can you
Absolutely.
kind of break that down a little bit for us too?
Yeah, here's an example of what I'm talking about. Research has shown that one of the most important things a leader can do is actually have hard conversations, hold people accountable. When there's bad behavior, a leader that can lean into that can have a conversation for someone who's out of line will gain incredible respect. Well, there's a lot of training on how to have a difficult conversation. Now, you can know how to have a difficult conversation and still not have the difficult conversation. So that's that internal character part. Do
Mhm.
you have the intestinal fortitude, as it were, to enter into the sort of emotional chaos that a difficult conversation can create? Now, then there's some leadership things. I was talking to a gentleman earlier today who was talking about his leadership style. He's not very visionary. And yet, vision, having a goal, is an essential part of leadership. He's much more of a what you would call a servant leader and more inclined as a sort of second in command as opposed to being the commander. And we were happened to be talking about his Clifton Strengths Assessment. And most of his talent themes dealt with the details of a project and checking in on people,
Mhm.
that sort of thing. Not real visionary talent themes. So what I like to do is help people like this gentleman understand, look, you're not really built for vision. That doesn't mean that you can't be visionary, that you can't set goals. It just means that leading with vision is not going to be your strong suit as a leader. He's going to lead by example much more effectively than trying to cast vision when that doesn't really come naturally to him.
Yeah, that makes sense because I like watching the NFL. And when I see, there's some people that are the players that kind of are the team captains, right? And some of them lead by like, oh my God, come on, let's do this. We're going to go ahead and get them. Everybody get in here. Da, da, da. And there's other ones that just play the game at a super high level and they lead by example. So you can lead in multiple different ways, which I like. But
Absolutely.
what's a common mistake that you see either coaches or entrepreneurs make when it comes to leadership?
I think the easiest mistake to make is to not lead yourself well. Really, being a good leader, it's imperative that you're able to lead yourself well. And sort of a corollary to that is the ability to be led. So I think there's, like in the military, you have to progress through your ranks. And as you progress, you are learning more and more about not just your craft, but also about leadership. So the ability to lead is largely shaped by a person's ability to follow and then also their ability to lead themselves.
So when you say, can you define like leading yourself? Is that just like having, the right type of habits where you're just doing the things, or like if you can break it down for the listeners out there?
Yeah. So where are you going? First of all, do you have a goal? That's essential if you're going to
Mhm.
lead. Actually, when I was doing my research on my master's degree, one of the things that dawned on me is the word leader has certain assumptions built into it. And one of the assumptions is there's a destination. You're actually going somewhere. So if you're going to lead yourself, it really matters that you know where you're going. If you have a very nebulous sense of where you want to go, where you want to take your business, who you want your audience to be, it's going to be much more difficult for you to lead yourself towards that goal. Another essential part of leadership is, yes, you're going to be your ability to discipline yourself, to do the things that you know are important and that are going to get you the results that you want to get.
Yes, coaches, we know all about that. Like we have to be the one. So if we're fitness coaches, like we're leading ourselves every single day. Number one, we're staying fit, right? So we're eating healthy, and you have to lead by example. Like we're lifting weights, we're doing our cardio, we're doing all
Yeah,
the
oh, yeah.
things necessary. We're studying up on that. But then also like for our business, we're doing the same things too. Like you have to lead, whether you have a team or whether you're doing it by yourself, but you have to be consistent with your habits, with your social media content, with reaching out and having more connections and having conversations with those connections and booking calls and like building the business. Like you have to lead yourself. Nobody's going to lead your business for you. And you use the term mental fitness too. So for people who aren't familiar with that, how do you define mental fitness?
Yeah, your mental fitness is your ability to respond to life's challenges. Not unlike physical fitness. Your physical fitness is your ability to respond to the physical challenges that you're faced with. When you and I were talking earlier, we were talking about climbing a mountain, right? If I'm going to go to Colorado and climb a 14er, which I would love to do, if I'm not in shape, I am going to have a really hard time. It's going to be difficult. But what I can do is I can say, hey, I got this buddy, Tobias. I'm going to call Tobias and have him put together a workout program for me so that I can build up my VO2 levels and some leg strength and upper body strength. I can conquer this 14er. Now, getting over the 14er is still going to take a lot of effort, but I'll recover much more quickly. It'll be easier for me to get over that mountain. Now, apply that to mental fitness, business setbacks, COVID, interpersonal conflict, right? You might even in your body right now be feeling a visceral response to those words. They're not fun things. Mental fitness is our ability to recover and confront the realities of life. The war in Ukraine,
Yeah.
probably Kirk being shot. Pick an event that is difficult. Our ability to respond to that is a reflection of our mental fitness.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good correlations in there. And, a lot of coaches also, they know what to do, but sometimes they struggle with procrastination or with self
Oh, yeah.
doubt or burnout. So, how do you coach somebody through the gap between knowing and actually doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot to that. There's a lot of nuance. First of all, back to, is it something you really can do? Is it something you're going to excel at? If not, how can you mitigate that? Who do you know that's great at that will help you? We are not designed to live independently. There's a great leadership quote about that says the idea that there are well-rounded people who have only strengths and no weaknesses, is a recipe for mediocrity, if not disaster. We have to get people around us who are going to support us and who can fill in those gaps. So first of all, find out, can you do it? And if not, what are those parts that you don't do well that other people can come in and do? Then you want to look at what is getting in the way, what is causing this self-sabotaging behavior. There's some narrative in our head that is telling us a lie. This is going to be too hard for you. This won't be enough fun. This isn't going to work. You're a loser. You're not achieving enough.
Yeah.
People aren't going to be happy with you. All these lies come in and they lock us up. And what I help people do is discover those lies and then develop the mental fitness to get over the sort of mountains that those lies create in our lives.
Yes. And I know a lot of it is putting yourself around the wrong types of people because they say that like the 5 people that you surround yourself with are the ones who actually will shape who you become. Right. So if you're around, a bunch of people that aren't really doing much with their lives and complaining all the time, you're going to be the 6th one. Or if you're around people that are like high achievers, always, striving for greatness, like you're going to be the next one that's going to be in there too. And what do you think? Is resilience something that we build more from success? Is it from failure or is it from both?
Yeah, it's going to be, I'm going with both on that one,
Okay.
Tobias.
Yeah.
Because if you never fail, then you don't have the opportunity to develop resilience, right? But as we have victories, those create what psychologists would call evocative memories. Something I can go back to. Wait a minute. I actually qualified for the Boston Marathon by running a 6-minute mile in the last mile of a marathon where my buddy had crashed out and he said, you got to finish and there's no time left. How does that happen? Right. And so I have these, and then I ran the Boston Marathon even though I was sick. So I have these milestones in my life that affirm that you're capable of doing some pretty impressive things, so to speak. But then I have other things like this past year has been very difficult trying to recover from a motorcycle accident and 2 major surgeries, learning to walk again, being told I have to totally change my workout routine because I can't use straight bars, blah, blah, blah. That's really tough, you see. And so it's a mix of being able to, well, it's weightlifting, isn't it? You're going for your 1 rep max. And if you don't get crushed, you're not going to keep going, right? You get crushed by a weight, you back off, you keep working up, and you keep pushing yourself forward. You keep increasing your 1 rep max. And I think it's the same emotionally. We're increasing our 1 rep max.
Okay. And a lot of people have a hard time with self-sabotage. So why do so many people sabotage themselves? And what's the first step to breaking that cycle?
Yeah. Well, I think just like with any problem, the first step is admitting that you have a problem. Okay. Now, why do we do that? We do it in a way by accident on purpose. And what I mean by that is, Tobias, what do you think is the number one responsibility of your brain?
Probably, well, it does the number one, I'm not sure. It does so many things. Like it
It
keeps your
does.
heart beating. It
It
keeps,
does.
it keeps you alive, I would say.
Exactly. You got it. I put you on the spot. You nailed it. The
Cool.
number one job of the brain is to keep the owner alive, plain and simple. So that is why our brains have like 3-to-1 neurons, neuroreceptors that are threat receptors because threats are a problem. Friends aren't going to hurt us, but enemies are. Right? And so our brains are always on the lookout for danger. Now, as a newborn babe, years like 0 to 2, all your brain knows is what's happening around you. It doesn't understand why or what's going on. And we learn very, very early on how to protect ourselves. If I don't want mom or dad to yell at me or hit at me or fight with each other, if I don't want bad things to happen to me, if I behave this way, it's going to keep me safe. So, you mentioned high achievers. Yeah, there are some great high achievers, but a lot of times that's sort of it's being driven by a shadow I've got to keep myself alive message. In order for me to be a good person, I have to achieve, which is something we begin learning these lies or distortions might be a better word in our infancy. And we create these thought patterns. And over the years, we grow, we mature, and we realize, well, maybe not so much. But those neural pathways, they've been built for years and years and years. And so we basically have what I call a neurological superhighway that goes right into our amygdala. And what we need to do then is acknowledge that I have a problem sabotaging myself, then figure out, well, how am I doing that? What are the lies I'm telling myself? When do those lies show up? What does that feel like in my body? What are the thoughts that go through my head? And I think one of the great, and I love that this is free, there's a free assessment online at a website called Positive Intelligence. Positive Intelligence / saboteurs. That will tell you right there, this is how you are sabotaging yourself. Once you know that, then you can start doing the mental fitness exercises and dealing with that behavior.
Gotcha. Yeah. And all the self awareness and things in there too is so
Mhm.
important. So, for
Yes.
fitness coaches specifically, how can self awareness actually improve client results and improve retention and things like that too?
Yeah, I think that's so key. I'm really glad you brought that up. That self-awareness, first of all, will help you understand what's motivating you. Why do you want to have this business? What's going on there? And how are you getting in your own way? What are the lies you're telling yourself? Because until you acknowledge those lies, you can't deal with them. So there's that aspect. Self-awareness is also the cornerstone of emotional intelligence, which if you've done any reading on leadership in the past 30 years, you will realize that emotional intelligence it's foundational to success in life and especially as a leader. That's your ability to control yourself, but then also understand, relate to, and manage the relationships around you. So as a personal trainer, your ability to empathize with your clients is critical. And your ability to understand the emotions that they're bringing into any session is critical. So if you can acknowledge those emotions and meet them where they are in the first, let's say 2 or 3 minutes, right? You're just kind of doing some light warm-ups or whatever. Tell me what's going on. Yeah. And then allow them some space to offload some of their emotions. They're going to be able to go through whatever lesson you have for them that day, whatever routine you're going to do, much more effectively. So it's
Yeah.
going to help you. It's going to help your clients. Everybody's
Yeah.
performance is going up.
Yeah, so you have to build trust both with your clients,
Absolutely.
both with your, the people, your audience out there. And,
Yes.
when it comes to trust itself, like what do you think builds it fastest and what do you think destroys it the fastest too?
Wow. Destroy it. That's an interesting angle because I'm so much more interested in building trust
Yeah.
than destroying it. I don't think about destroying it so much. I think easily the most important thing for building trust is vulnerability. I refer to vulnerability as the fertile soil that allows trust to go. So I would imagine, Tobias, that over the years you've had some setbacks, some disappointments, some things didn't work out real well. Your ability to talk about that, to empathize with other people as they're struggling with things, that will go so far to building trust, right? That type of vulnerability. And there are other things that go into trust, but the best and the starting place, I think, is always going to be vulnerability. And to destroy it, I think in that case, well, there's a thing called communication spirals, right? An upward communication spiral is, hey, what's a nice girl like you doing in a place like this? Hoping I get to meet a nice young man like you. Oh, well, what's your major? Blah, 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 right? And so everybody's happy. The way you get out of a communication spiral is to do the exact opposite. What's a nice girl like you doing in a place like this? Hoping I don't meet any jerks like you. Down in flames, right? So it just keeps going down and down and down. I would imagine destroying trust would be kind of like that, breaking a confidence, not following through on things, not being true
That
to your word. A lot of
communication.
those integrity things. Yeah.
Yeah. And for the online coaches that are
Mm-hmm.
trying to stand out, what's your advice for communicating their value even more powerfully so they stand out from the competition?
My advice there is going to be yourself. Don't look at Tobias and be Tobias. Let Tobias be Tobias. Who are you? Be that person. And that creates, well, it's vulnerability. If I'm out there being Tobias and then they meet me and they go, wait, I thought I was meeting a guy like Tobias, but you're not like Tobias. You're different, right?
Yeah.
So just honestly, just be the most interesting version of yourself you can be.
Yeah. And I tell people that all the time because
Yeah.
I see them kind of like change and they're trying to be like the other fitness coaches that are on Instagram or whatever. And I'm like, hey, be yourself. Like show your personality because they're too scared to just like show who they are. And I'm like, man, there's going to be so many people that will just respond to you because of who you are. Like you don't have to, look like me. There's going to be people that, prefer somebody like you than they do for me and vice versa. So, and it's okay. So I love that you said that. And you yourself, Michael, you've worn so many hats, right? Soldier, musician, professor, coach. Which of those roles taught you the most about resilience?
About resilience, which is taught me the most about resilience. I would, as I reflect on this, that's tough because it's going to be a combination of being in the military and being in a band. Because when you're in a band, it's just like in the military. Like if you're out doing a live drill in the military, things are going to go wrong.
Yeah.
It's an imperfect world. Live performance, things happen that aren't supposed to happen. And your ability to adapt and not tank yourself, not go all bad on yourself or the people around you, like that knucklehead did this or whatever. But your ability to embrace the change and go with the flow, as we're in those live environments, that's where that really can grow and flourish.
Yeah. Cool. No, I like that too. And I mean, so obviously the musician part has taught you a lot, and then your military, and specifically from your military, like what lessons from your military background still guide how you coach and lead people today?
Interesting. That is really interesting. Now you've got me a little bit stumped there. I'm gonna have to because that was a long time ago. I'm gonna think back. There's a time and a place in your relationship with your leader. Now, obviously, the military is very structured. You've got very strong delineations. Okay. One of the things I learned though, and this was at basic training with my sergeant, was again going back to just be yourself. Don't try to be somebody else. And he stood out to him. And I was given a lot of responsibility. Oddly enough, I was trying to hide, but I was still being authentic. Kept my act together. I paid attention. I studied hard, and that made an impression on him. And at one point, at basic training of all places, I ended up having a conversation with my drill sergeant that was life changing. It was just unbelievable as he kind of stepped out of the drill sergeant role with this very strong separation between authority and friendship. And we just had a conversation as two men, and it was really, really great. And
Nice.
so this ability to still be human and be present with people and know when you, as a leader, it's time to, well, be vulnerable and make a connection with someone.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's different than I even expected. So that's cool. And I'm gonna ask you kind of like a big question that we're gonna tighten in here. So if you could like compress 30 plus years of all your experience into one truth about leadership that everybody should remember, What's that one thing? I know.
You can tell from this interview that I'm rarely at a loss for words because I talk so much, but you've done it, Tobias. Congratulations.
Thank you.
When it comes to leadership, leadership is relentlessly developmental. Leadership is relentlessly developmental. It's about making the people around you better. Now, having said that, I'm challenged by, I'm going to go back on that just a little bit. I'm going to back up a little bit further. The best leaders are lovers. Book, The Leadership Challenge, I refer to as the Leadership Bible. It's very well researched. It's an excellent book. Here's the spoiler. The last chapter is about what makes a great leader. And what makes a great leader is someone who loves. They love leading. They love their product or their destination. They love the people around them.
Wow. I like that. I like that. That's cool. Yeah. And the
It
best
took
coaches love what they do, and they're in love with the
yeah,
results that they provide, and they love their clients. And usually it's because like something that they did in the past, they learned from it, and it was like, sometimes traumatic for them, and then they were
right.
able to overcome it. And
Yeah.
that's why they become so passionate about it. At least some of the most powerful coaches that I know. And for the coaches listening who want to grow their business, but they feel like they're getting in their own way, like what's one simple practice that you would say, hey, start doing this today?
One simple practice. Gosh, there's many. Once you've identified and you acknowledge I'm getting in my own way, really work on your self-awareness. What are you telling yourself? And then ask yourself, is that really true? I made a phone call today to a neighboring chamber of commerce to say, hey, you know what? I want to offer my services to do some training for business leaders here. But in order to make that phone call, I had to identify and combat the lies in my head that say, they don't want to listen to you. They don't know you. Why do you think they were going to ask you to come and talk to them? And so we have all these self-defeating lies. Identify them and do the hard work of fighting them. You can fight them in part on your own, but you're never going to succeed without an army, so to speak. So here's something I'll just offer you and all the listeners. Go to my website. On my website, there's a free download called the Power Bank. That's going to be 3 energy sources in your life that are free. My challenge to you is to access these every day. Do something out of these 15 elements from 3 areas. So you have 3 areas: rest, recreation, and relationships. And you identify 5 things in each of those categories. 5 people, Tobias, who love you. They get you. They're on your side. You can text or call them anytime. Some client blows up on you and says, you are the dumbest trainer I've ever met with. You don't know, you can't train your way out of a paper bag. You call up one of your guys and you say, would you believe what happened to me? And they listen to you, talk you off the edge, and they're with you. What are 5 things you can do that allow you to rest really well? Make sure you do that. I took a nap this afternoon. I was tired. You know what? I'm not getting any work done if I just try to push through.
Yeah.
I'm just going to relax for a little bit. And then recreation. What are things that you can do that feed your soul? Maybe it's reading a book. Maybe it's going for a run, playing music. What are those things? All those, this is basically, we're dealing with the second law of thermodynamics, right? Everything is expending energy, and we have to put energy back into the system. As a coach, you're expending a lot of energy to start this business or expand this business. How are you injecting energy into yourself? The power bank is your energy source.
Nice. I like that. And he said the second law of thermodynamics, not the first law, not energy in versus energy out, but energy out, putting the energy back in, refueling the chamber, refueling the beast. Yes,
Exactly.
you guys know that. So I like that, man. And to kind of cap things off, and obviously maybe you send them to your website, but like, what's a book, what's a framework, or some type of practice that has influenced you the most? And maybe it's the framework that you just talked about, but what's the one thing that you're like, this changed my...
Wow, I don't think I can answer that honestly. There are so many different things. When it comes, I will narrow it down to leadership. When it comes to leadership, the book I always recommend first is The Advantage by Patrick Lencioni. And that's if you're leading teams. That I refer to as the field manual of leadership. The other book I really like, as I've already referenced, is The Leadership Challenge by Kouzes and Posner. And again, the last chapter that turned my head around was Leaders or Lovers. Wow, I never saw that coming.
Awesome. And Michael, man, this has been incredible. Like from
Thanks.
leadership to identity to mental fitness, like you've given us so many insights and practical tools that our listeners can just, start applying right away. And before we wrap up, I should say, where's the best place for people to connect with you, learn more about your work, or even work with you directly?
Yeah, thank you. My website would be a great place to go. I said andersonlr.com is my website for Anderson Leadership Resources. So just Anderson, letter L, letter R.com. There's an extensive blog on there. If you've done the Clifton Strengths Assessment, I've blogged about all of those, lots of leadership topics, other free resources. So that would be, and there's a Let's Connect button. So anybody who wants to sign up for a free 30-minute coaching call, you're welcome to. I would love to meet you.
Nice. I love it. Thank you. And thanks again for being here, Michael. And like to everybody listening, just remember the best thing you can do for your business, for your clients, and for your relationships is to first know and lead yourself. That's where everything else flows from. And we'll see you on the next episode of the FitBiz Accelerator. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in to the FitBiz Accelerator. If you found value in today's episode, make sure to subscribe so you never miss a tip or strategy to grow your online fitness business. And if you're ready to fast track your success, don't forget to check out tntfitprocoaching.com. Until next time, stay consistent, stay focused, and keep crushing it.